whatever. I don't use the video. I just like to have it because I feel like it's more personal. And,
Oh, okay.
and
So you're not
so
recording, it's just all verbal.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay. I'll just do a quick, I'll add a good introduction later. So I'm just going to do a quick one and we'll get started.
Okay, cool.
Okay, hi everyone. Today we have Dr. Sarah Doyle. She has a million things that she has under her belt. She's got classes, she's got courses. I can't wait actually to maybe take one, maybe do one, and I can't wait for you all to learn all about them. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, thanks for having me. Actually, before you leave the topic, I am doing a women's hormone course next Tuesday if you want to hop on.
Ooh, okay.
I'll give you a complimentary sesh.
Yes, I definitely do. I
Yeah,
definitely
so
do.
I have a bio. So yeah, I'll just jump right into that. I have a biohacking boot camp for men and women's hormones. It's a mixed group of men and women, and we talk about. We do a 10-week boot camp, and we have a weekly mastermind. Um, my clients are generally struggling with hormonal fluctuations that come with middle age. I call myself a midlife crisis hormone expert. Uh, so my passion is helping people stay out of hospitals. And so I was originally a realtor and
Oh,
yeah, I have a business. I have a degree in economics and international business, and I worked in economic development and had a real estate license. That's what I originally did. But there's not a lot of integrity in a lot of transactions that happen, and I got lied to a lot of wasted time. So I went back to school at age 28, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be a DO, a PharmD, or a PT. And I ended up after doing my internships. If I should have been a DO, but at that age, I was like, I'm going to be almost 40 before I can make a paycheck. I was like, that's a horrible idea for retirement. So I decided to be a DPT instead, which gave me the ability to own my own clinic, like an MD. So
mhm.
it's better than being an NP or a PA because I can do my own thing without any oversight.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was really important to me. I worked in hospitals for 7 years or so, and I used to float to every unit. I started off at Mount Sinai in Miami Beach, which is about 1,000-bed hospital, and we get all the life flights from all the islands, all the tourists that have weird things. It was a great learning experience. If you've been in the healthcare field and you've had those giant textbooks and you had to read 500 pages a week, there was maybe one sentence about one disease that you would hear. And like, I got to see a lot of those cases at Mount
Nice.
Sinai. So it was a pretty cool, it was a pretty cool experience. And what I didn't realize was that that was really going to form my life because I went to every different floor. I learned that cultures, because Miami, like more than 50% of people were not born in this country. So certain cultures would dominate certain floors with disease processes. And I was like, why is that? And um,
Okay.
all right, so I was like, what I noticed when I was, on all the different floors is that different cultures dominated certain floors. And I was like, well, why is that? And, I figured out it's because what they eat. And as my career progressed, people would say to me, how can they send me home? They don't even know what's wrong with me. They're just giving me more prescriptions. And I could tell that diseases were vitamin and mineral deficiencies, but we're not taught any of that in Western med, like not at all. Like I had maybe 50 pages in one textbook talking, not even, that's an exaggeration. I don't even think it was like one small chapter on like the main vitamins like D, zinc, vitamin C, nothing about trace minerals, nothing. And so, you know, um, I started in oncology in a different hospital. And that was the epitome of what bad diet will do to a person. It causes cancer. I had one patient, she was missing most of her teeth. And she's like, God, I feel so much better eating this hospital food.
Wow.
I was like,
Wow.
well, I can't even smell that stuff. I used to not be able to eat at the hospital. I wouldn't eat until I got home. I would fast my entire shift, maybe drink a protein shake because I was all the smells of sickness and the food. Oh, and she's like, yeah, I usually eat fast food. And I was
Oh,
like,
no wonder.
yeah, no wonder you're dying of cancer. So, and then just watching people go through chemotherapy, like that is the epitome of big pharma destroying a human body. And when people go through cancer, there's They have a lot of, I noticed people have a lot of emotional toxins, like a lot of, I'm generalizing here, but a lot
Hmm.
of women had abusive men bedside. And like they had a
Oh,
lifetime of, it's an unhealthy relationship, right? They had a lifetime of that. Or I noticed a lot of people with repeat cancers had that victim mentality. It was everybody else's fault, not theirs. They didn't have a sense of accountability. So I noticed, anecdotally, emotional toxins. I noticed that, because when you're a PT, you work bedside. So I go into the office every day. I had my random patient list that, whoever decided, they decided to give me whoever patients. I did a lot of trauma, but sometimes I had to go to the med surge floors, which are just like glorified nursing home beds, people who are like just poorly managed health. They go in for a few days and they're bounced back in and out. And I noticed that, people with certain diseases had dental infections in certain places. And I was learning about how each tooth has a meridian connected to a different organ. They believe that in Eastern medicine. And I started anecdotally, I studied the teeth charts, and then I would go see my patients, and, they have kidney disease. I would have them open their mouth. And sure enough, they're missing their bottom, front teeth, genital urinary.
wow.
So I started learning all this stuff, and I was like, I really want to study functional medicine. I started looking at different programs, and then the pandemic happened. And, initially in COVID, they were just ventilating everybody. And so if you're not in healthcare, if you don't work in hospitals, you don't know this, so I'll fill you in. But like when you stick a tube down your throat for a prolonged time, it disrupts your swallow reflex. Like you know how to bend your arm, but you don't know how to swallow. And it's a reflex. So when that's all stretched out for a prolonged time, you can't swallow. And if you can't swallow food, you can't go home. If they can't go home, they can't clear the bed for the next COVID patient. And what you also don't know is that insurance rules everything. And there's occupational therapy, which is a lot with stroke rehab, upper extremity, a lot of upper stuff. And PT is generally lower extremity, walking, ambulating, getting to the toilet, like life skills. We teach different life skills. And then there's speech therapy, which teaches you how to speak after a stroke, how to swallow. Well, Medicare lumps together PT and speech therapy. And then occupational therapy gets their own budget. So at that time, when they were tubing everybody or putting everybody on ventilators, um, all the budget was going to speech therapy, and physical therapists were just like, I was furloughed for like 3-4 months before I got called back. And eventually they realized it's better if we just keep them awake and walk them. Duh. So eventually they
Right.
brought us back. But in that 4 months, I was sitting at home and I found a functional medicine program that would allow me to go at my own pace. So instead of doing Netflix and chill, I did functional medicine and write notes and study, study,
Wow.
and study. And I got through most of that program. Then I got called back to work and I was in COVID ICU and I was watching, it was just an awful experience. It was an awful experience. And I had never had, I did a cortisol test on myself. Like to this day, I've never seen anybody with higher cortisol levels. I was off the charts. They couldn't even add it up. And I knew something was wrong because I was in the ICU. I was working with patients and like they would desat, which means they're losing oxygen in their blood. And I work with open heart patients. I work with brain injury patients, patients that are missing a piece of their skull. You know, I work with all kinds of crazy stuff. And if somebody starts, their vitals start crashing, you just stop moving them and they recover. But with COVID, their vitals started crashing. I stopped moving them and they continued to crash.
Mm.
And that's how we knew. I was like, this is man made. And we were just like, the whole nursing staff, like, we were just like, wow, this is the weirdest thing. And I was watching just people die like left and right, and I was like, this job is gonna kill me. Like on one hand, I loved helping people. I loved trauma ICU. I had a lot of passion for it, but that was the catalyst. So I had started coaching people on my own. I started coaching my friends for free at first to practice,
Nice.
and then
Yep.
they started sending me people. I specialized in women's health because I don't know if you've ever had, if anybody listening has ever had any issues, but when you go to your gynecologist, you're like, I have really uncontrollable periods to where I have to call out of work. Isn't there anything I can do? They're like, oh, take some birth control. I mean, I've had women in their 50s who should be going through menopause still on birth control. Like, doctors are just really ill equipped at managing women's hormone symptoms. Most even OBGYNs, most of their training is to fertility and birthing and childbirth and whatnot. They only have the latest stats I heard from another doctor was that they get 6 to 8 hours of training in menopause.
Wow. That's
So yeah,
scary.
that's why you go to your doctor, and they have egos. Especially if you go to a male gynecologist, 9 times out of 10, you end up leaving there feeling like you want to cry because they don't know how to deal with it. And so they're just like, they make you feel stupid for asking for help, and they make you feel stupid for asking for a test because even if they got the test results, they don't know how to interpret it. And
Right, right.
yeah, if there isn't a prescription drug to fix it, then how can they justify ordering the test? It's all driven by insurance. So my coaching program began to help women through perimenopause and menopause doing things naturally. And I have so what happens in my boot camp, like I talked about, is I onboard my patients, and I start them off with my diet 7X method. I'll get into that soon.
Hmm.
Uh, and then we order tests for the home, and I do urinary metabolites of their sex hormones, stress hormones. We can get a little bit of methylation insight. I do brain chemistry. So people don't know you can pee in a cup and find out your serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine. You can find out why you have depression. You can find out why alcoholism runs in your family with glutamate and GABA, phenylethylamine, and histamine. Like if you have ADHD, you have low norepinephrine and low phenylethylamine. Will any psychiatrist ever check for that? They're like, oh no, sounds like you have ADHD. Let's do this test. Oh, yep, you scored on this test. So let's use this drug that works on this brain
Right,
chemical. You know,
right.
it's crazy. Like the drugs they give for ADHD are like mostly dopamine reuptake inhibitors, the amphetamine type drugs like
Mhm.
Adderall and Ritalin,
Yeah.
and but ADHD is a low norepinephrine and low phenylethylamine. So it's what I do in my program is different. I'll do things that doctors can't do. And I also test thyroid. I check for the antibodies, the ones that are present with Hashimoto's and other autoimmune things, the other ones that are present with a heavy metal toxicity. And I test for heavy metals also because the heavy metals will interact with our sex hormones. So it's, there's all these bioidentical hormone replacement clinics popping up, and you can't just treat estrogen without looking at serotonin, without looking at T3, without looking at the cortisol. Like you have to have healthy cortisol output. This is why we do a 5 sample test so you can see if you have an appropriate response in the morning, and if
Oh,
you have to have an appropriate morning response because when your ovaries retire in menopause, your adrenal glands will eventually take over for making those hormones. And if you have trashed you've lived a high stress life, trashed your adrenal glands your whole life, when you go into menopause, you're screwed. Your body's going to keep piling on fat because fat makes estrogen.
oh, oh. That's interesting. So on that, so if fat makes estrogen, why do we, as I don't want to say doctors will often prescribe estrogen? I mean, I know there's a lot of things about breast cancer and estrogen, but like I feel like we're more obese now than ever. If fat's
Toxic
making
estrogen. Yeah.
yeah, that's
I I
interesting.
get I get a lot of people that are full of toxic estrogen. So the urine test that I
Oh,
do checks for toxic estrogen metabolites. You when you get a BHRT, there's 3 different kinds of estrogens. There's E1, E2, E3. E2 is estradiol,
okay.
and E3 is estriol, E1 is estrone. It's one, two, three.
Mm.
So E2 is the active one, and a lot of times when I see somebody with high estrogens, high toxic estrogens, those are E1 metabolites, but E1's not the active one in the body. E2 is for men and women. E2, you have estradiol receptors in your brain, in your bones, in your endothelial lining of your blood vessels. So the good estrogen is important.
Yeah, so I'm just like for people. So I'm about to be 46. So I'm definitely perimenopause. I'm still have a regular period and stuff. But I know like my body is changing and things are happening and I always automatically just say, "Oh, it's probably just my body changing." And it's not like anything drastic or dramatic. like I think there's more fatigue than there ever has been. My hair falls out way worse than it ever did. And I'm just curious, like,
Yes.
at what point do I get my hormones tested? I have not had my hormones tested. I've had lots of blood work done in the last year, but I don't know that I've had like all my hormones tested or the appropriate ones tested. How do I know which ones I should do? I mean, is there like a protocol? And how do I
Yeah.
know if it's like a normal symptom, a normal menopause symptom?
Okay, so these are, you don't need to have those symptoms. Those are signs that something's wrong.
Okay.
You even when okay, so I was just studying this other doctor from Cornell. She used to be an Alzheimer's, she's a PhD doctor. She used to be an Alzheimer's specialist and she shifted to menopause because in her family, all the older women got Alzheimer's and the men didn't. 1 out of 6 Americans gets Alzheimer's, and the rates are double for women than they are for
Hmm.
men. Why is that? Well, what she started to find in her preliminary research is that when women are going through perimenopause and their cycles start skipping, that's when, like, if your cycles start skipping, that's when you're for sure in perimenopause.
Okay.
And then you're not getting sufficient estrogen to your brain. And your brain, men and women have estrogen receptors in their brain, but it's particularly more obviously affects women. So when you don't get enough estrogen to your brain, those receptors start atrophying and they shrivel up and die. So a woman who doesn't have enough estrogen will start to have a little bit of decrease of like the brain tissue starts shrinking. And then when you're in perimenopause, that's when amyloid plaques start depositing. So you won't have full blown Alzheimer's until like 20 years later. But having these hormone fluctuations has effects. This is the message I'm trying to get out to people is you've got to start testing yourself in perimenopause. You look at estrogens, your E1, your E2, your E3. You want to look at your progesterone. You want to look at FSH. You want to look at LH. You want to look at DHEA. You want to check your cortisols. If you can get a test with 4 to 5 cortisol readings, like you can't get that from your doctor with blood work. You have to go to a functional medicine doctor to find that. Doctors only test you for things that they can give a prescription drug for. And
Right. Like
so
that's just like a simple basic CBC.
so yeah, they're
Something,
gonna wait for
nothing.
something to be out of range, like blatantly out of range, before they can justify having insurance pay for a test and then give you a prescription. So if you're in your late 40s, certainly go get this tested. You can go through a functional medicine practitioner like me. There's even at-home tests like on Amazon. I think there's a company called Everlywell.
Oh,
I
yeah.
use urine panels. There's the Dutch test. It's pretty expensive. It's like $600-700 for people. I have found a lab in Boca Raton that does it for about half price.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, I've been using them. And their reports are a lot easier to read. Like actual normal people can read it. And they make the colors and they make it very readable for the average person.
Nice.
But yeah, so the statistics are 1 out of 8 women gets breast cancer, 1 out of 5 women will die of cardiovascular disease, which is a heart attack or stroke. And there was a recent UK study that said 1 out of 10 women will retire early because of mismanaged menopause symptoms. The main thing is brain fog, right? So, like I
Yeah.
mentioned those receptors in your brain shrivel up and die. So, if you don't maintain sufficient estrogen throughout the years, it's really hard to get that back. I mean, the estrogen taking, BHRT I use work with herbs. Everything I do is all natural. There's no side effects. Sometimes people try hormones and they feel awful. Like I just had a client in here. She wants to do hormones instead of natural. I'm like, okay. And then, a month or two later, she's like, I feel horrible. I feel like I'm getting my period. My boobs hurt all the time. I was like, well, that's what you
Yeah.
get for taking hormones. I was like,
Yeah.
there's, you may feel good at first, but then you start getting saturated in the periphery. You get saturated with these hormones, and that's a common complaint. They feel like the crampy. They're in their 60s and they start spotting
Oh,
again.
sounds
Um,
terrible.
yeah, it's not great. So I try to work with everybody early and work with supplements. But even if they're older, like I have some people in their 60s, even early 70s, I can get them to respond. We might have to load them up on supplements, because there's more years of nutrient depletion that we have to
Yeah.
make up for. But yeah, it's really important when you're in your 40s to start testing yourself regularly. I can't emphasize that enough because all these diseases that I mentioned, the heart disease, the cancers, the Alzheimer's, they take 10 to 20 years to develop and they start in midlife. So,
Oh, that's super interesting because I know I'm pretty conscious of what I eat. I
yeah.
have been for a few years, not forever, but I can tell when I have my moments where I'm not super conscious, like I have a bad weekend. I don't want to say bad weekend where, but I have a weekend where I splurge on food and I eat, like I go out of town or whatever. But I always can. That's the one of the main reasons I can stay healthy now is because I'll have major brain fog if I don't, if I, and I don't want to have that, like, because I already, a few weeks ago, I've been living in this apartment that I'm at for 4 months, has the door code, and I could not remember my door code.
Scary.
I had to call my landlord.
Oh my God.
I use it every day for 4 months, and I did it one. So my last travel assignment was in Hawaii for 6 months. Same thing happened there. I had to call my landlord.
Yeah, so your symptoms you're feeling are early symptoms of these disease processes starting to develop. So I would highly recommend, and I'm not scaring you because it's
No, no,
totally, you can totally fix it at this point. But women need to be aware these are not normal signs of aging. These
that's
are,
what I thought until
yeah,
today, till right now. That's what
that's
I
what
thought.
people think. Well, yeah, that's because big pharma is going to brainwash you into that. So you
Right.
feel like, oh, it's just going to happen. And then I'm going to go to my doctor and then I'm going to get a cocktail of 14 different pills and it's going
Right.
to be all right. It's
Right.
never all right. Every
And I've
pill
seen
has
my
a side.
mom go through it. So I'm like, oh, it's hereditary. I'm just doing what she's doing. So that there's that too. So
Yeah,
she
well,
probably, yeah.
I'm trying to shift the paradigm where people can realize that it's not normal. It's not normal. If I have a longevity test you can take where you test your telomeres. So for people who don't know, you have RNA, and we know about RNA from the stupid vaccine, but RNA has something on the end of it called a telomere that keeps it from unraveling, and it's kind of like if your shoelace was RNA, the telomere is the little plastic thing on the end that keeps it from falling apart.
Nice.
But over years, that little, if you wear a pair of sneakers for 10 years, that little plastic thing starts falling apart. So I have a blood test. You do like a finger prick test and you send it into a lab and they'll check your telomere length and check your rate of aging. So I've been taking supplements and exercising and eating organic food since 2020, no, 2004.
Okay.
So for almost 20, like 22 years. It's been
Hmm.
22 years. Um, and it started because I went to go work at a job after real estate, and I noticed every woman, their stomach stuck out farther than their breast did.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay, not gonna happen here. I started eating salads. I got real tired. I went to a nurse that did live blood analysis, and she took my blood on a slide and put it under a microscope and projected it onto a screen. And she's like, "This is like it was crazy. Like my little white blood cell was eating a big candida." She's like, "You're
Hmm.
full of candida. That's why you're so tired." And I was like, yeah, I did take a lot of antibiotics as a kid. And I had this one round of antibiotics that made me really sick. And she's like, yeah, you're full of candida. She's like, you're full of parasites. You need to. So I started eating organic way back then. So I just took this test. I'm 44 and it says my biological age is 32. I have
Nice.
no symptoms. I have nothing that you can achieve this. But I test myself every year for the last, since I got into functional medicine, since 2021, I've been testing my hormones every year and I have to check it. I had zero testosterone last year. And I found out that was because I had a mold exposure and those mycotoxins harbor in your liver. And my blood test from my doctor said my testosterone was just fine.
Right.
And then but I went to my esthetician. She's like, what's happening to your skin? Your face is like sagging. She's like, is your testosterone okay? I'm like, yeah, it's fine. I just had it checked. And then when I did the urine panel, that'll tell us what the chemical reactions that just happened. That's why the urine panel is superior. And I had zero, like not even traceable. And so I called the lab. I'm like, how can this be? My testosterone and my blood work is fine. They're like, well, so we work backwards. We're like, what toxins have you been exposed to? And I was like, oh shit. So I spent hundreds of dollars with Cellcore Biosciences, detoxing mold, and then doing saunas and red light therapy and then taking some DHEA, and I was able. Last time I checked, my testosterone was awesome. It was awesome
That's,
again.
yeah. So that's good to know too. Because I just think I had some blood work done and my biological age recently was 32 also, 32.4. So, but I made a whole bunch of changes since then because I just want to I want to feel the best I can feel. But I
Yeah.
still have I still have fatigue. I get up pretty much at the same. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I've had fatigue my whole life. So I don't know. I'd love to. But like I said, my hormones weren't tested, but a lot of like I did a lot of biomarkers for my heart, which are like if I went to a regular doctor, they would all be normal.
Yep.
And then, but I got like some are not. So I'm a vegan. I've been vegan since 2012. Um, I have not taken omega 3s. I do not take D. I do not take B12. Like all this whole time until February, I started taking everything. Not everything, but whatever
Yeah.
that they recommended, I started taking or
Mhm.
incorporating it more in my diet. Plus, I've been like taking a lot of things out of my diet that aren't necessarily unhealthy. I just want to see how I feel without them.
Yeah, there's I sell supplements with a company called Designs for Health. They've been around for 35 years. That's what I use in my program because they have I can just work with them. I can do stuff with brain chemistry. I can fix they have stuff for thyroid, they have stuff for estrogen. Like I can just stick with one brand and they're good quality. And they have a genomics panel
Hmm.
where they test a lot of genes. If you have already done 23andMe, 23andMe is actually reliable. You can download the raw data file and I can upload it just to the algorithm for cheaper. If anybody out there wants that. But I found out a lot, like my methylation was really bad. And I found out my vitamin D, like my vitamin D is low, even though I live in South Beach, like I'm tan all the time. And
Yeah.
I was like, how can that be? And then I found out my two genes that make vitamin D are both like functioning at 70% capacity. So I was always low. So, that just knowing is half the battle. The DNA test is really helpful. I would suggest anybody, but any woman in her 40s start checking your hormones every year and
Yeah.
make sure they don't drop. And there's natural ways to do it. Don't listen to your doctor if they try to put you on birth control. You don't need So what happens when you take bioidentical hormone replacement therapy is you get stuck on it because here's how your body works. You have your pituitary in your head, and your pituitary tells all your glands what to do. All of them, your whole body, your thyroid, your whatever. That's why once people start taking thyroid medicine, they have to take it forever because it ruins a feedback loop. So that feedback loop, everything's done with chemicals, right? Everything's done at the molecular level, the way your body talks to itself. So your brain talks to your ovaries and is like using FSH, LH, those other chemicals, and says, "Hey, make some estrogen, make some estrogen." But you start if your estrogen's just kind of low in perimenopause, and you start taking estrogen, then your brain's like, "Oh, all right, we're getting it from somewhere else. Don't really need to make it," and you're stuck on it. And this is same thing happens to men with TRT. I was on another podcast, talking about how it's chemical castration, how younger and younger guys are using TRT. And then, say they start using it in their gym in their 30s, and then they meet the woman of their dreams, they're 42 and they want to have a baby. But all those years of using testosterone has decreased their sperm count. And they had no idea. And it's really hard to bring it back online. Once you are on hormones for like a couple years, it's really hard to wake up that feedback cycle and get the brain to talk to the testes again. So
That's yeah, that's
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. So I use them. There's a time and place for everything. Use it as a last resort.
Yeah.
You let your body, you can stimulate your body to do what it needs to do by removing toxins and giving the right nutrients, the right herbs.
Right. It's kind of the same principle maybe as like a type 2 diabetic. Like maybe you need insulin right now, but try not to get on insulin. Try to do all the insulin. Try to do all your, because there's so many things you can do to prevent diabetes or to, because type 2 diabetes you get later in life,
It's a
probably.
lifestyle disease.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So you can change your lifestyle but most of the time, right? I mean, so it's kind of
Mhm.
like that. Hopefully, like, so if I do, if I was like, if I come to see you and I'm having all these issues that I was talking about or whatever, can I eventually not take anything or will I always be on the natural stuff too?
You may likely be on the natural stuff because your body's getting older.
Right. Just like a supplement. I take because I was for a long time, I was like, I just don't want to take anything every day. But I know I took antidepressants for like a month and a long time ago.
Mhm.
And like a long time ago. But I know, but that's what stopped me. But then they're like, well, you can't take that, you can't come off of that quickly, and you can't come on. I was like, I don't want to be dependent. I've seen so many people dependent on medication that, like my nephew had his thyroid removed because he had cancer. He will be on medication for the rest of his life.
Yeah,
He's
for
only
sure.
25. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't want to, I don't want to be, I don't want to be in this world right now. I just want to feel free in every way. I just don't want to be in a place where I feel where I have to absolutely take something, or or something, or like if I accidentally skip a day, I don't want to be like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah, I mean they're
Yeah,
herbs, so if you skip a day, it's
right, it's fine.
fine.
Yeah,
But in reality, if you're older and your body's not working like it used to, it's you have a choice. You can either continue to have those symptoms and live with them and then probably get some crappy diseases down the line, because cardiovascular disease can largely be prevented by having good estrogen levels and a good diet. So, say you stay on your diet and you keep exercising. When your ovaries retire and stop making estrogen, it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to have increased triglycerides. Your visceral fat's going to increase just simply because your estrogen went down.
mm,
So you can either take herbs to help your, God gave us everything we need. He put all these herbs on earth for a reason. So you can either take herbs and boost your estrogen naturally, or you can let the triglycerides and the visceral fat build up and you can get cardiovascular disease.
right.
It's,
Which in the grand scheme of things is way, way worse than taking a pill every day.
yeah,
Well, I
I
mean, a
mean,
natural
so
pill.
yeah,
Like
I know.
also,
So I try to take foods and then try to eat good foods that are estrogenic. There's a lot of phytoestrogens. Sweet potatoes have estrogen. Obviously, soybeans, yams, chickpeas, hummus. A lot of these food you can get it from foods, and if you can get sufficient levels through foods, awesome. If you're continuing to have brain fog, that's a hallmark sign of low estrogen, then you're going to need some help. But it sure is better than losing your job or, you know, getting,
or forgetting your loved ones,
or
or
yeah,
something.
yeah,
I just think, and a lot of end of life stuff. I work in healthcare and I do heart stuff, and I don't, you just see people like, if you start that, if you go in and you have a heart attack, you are going to go to the hospital for the rest of your life, probably every year, and have a heart cath or
yep.
an defibrillator placed, or I mean, it's just, and it's, and if you continue to have heart disease, sometimes then it'll start affecting your kidneys and your lungs, and it's just a mess. And
So
I do
yeah,
not want to live like that.
no, because doctors are taught to treat symptoms, but how
Right.
often do they ever look at the root cause? Like, what is the heavy metal level in that body? Like, there was a clinical study done in Italy on patients who were on heart transplant lists. They had idiopathic cardiomyopathy, so they had heart failure of unknown reason. And just as while they were sitting there in bed, they did biopsies of their heart tissue and biopsies of their muscle tissue in their leg, like their quadricep. And what they found was that the mercury and antimony levels in the heart tissue were 10,000 times as high as they were in the legs. And you think
Oh,
that this heart disease is idiopathic? No, it's not. Do you think that mercury, they think it's because it's magnetic, your heart's magnetic, but your heart is electric, and you think having those heavy metals doesn't affect the conductivity? Thinking that doctors never do heavy metal cleanses, they never do parasite cleanses, they never do mold cleanses to boost testosterone. They never look at the testosterone. If you're a man and you don't have testosterone levels at least 500, you're not protected against heart disease. And do you think doctors ever check that? No, the conventional ranges are 300 to 1,000 for a man. And if they're like 325, they don't even do anything about it. Meanwhile, I mean, that's like my dad. I'm like, Dad, you've got to do something. You're not protected against heart disease. But he's like, oh, my doctor says I'm fine. Like, that generation is so locked into the big pharma model. So frustrating.
yes. It is so frustrating. My mom's like that a little bit. She takes a lot of different medications, and she
Mm.
just trusts, and like I think a lot that the difference between that era and now, we question everything, where they're just like, okay, the doctor says that's what should be, I should do that then. And I just don't have that well, I work with doctors, so I know that that doesn't work out. So your course, and I don't even know if it's the biohacking thing you do, it's men and women mixed.
Yep, we do mixed group and we do all that hormone, brain chemistry, heavy metal, and thyroid testing. They get one-on-one consultation with me, and I give them supplement recommendations. They get discounts on supplements, and then I have a WhatsApp channel that they get 24/7 access to me, which is really helpful when people are like coming off of antidepressants, or sometimes when they get healthier, like they may not need as much high blood pressure medication.
Hmm.
So as they go through my program, I'm monitoring their blood pressure, and I'm like, okay, so you might want to call your doctor and try to titrate down this one drug. I mean, it's a benefit of me being in the hospital for many years. So I have that exposure. Working in critical care, you learn about all kinds of medications. So
I bet.
and all disciplines, right? Because every person in ICU has a interdisciplinary team, and you communicate with each other. So yeah, I have that background where I can help them make the appropriate referrals, help them get off big pharma and get out, because those drugs have side effects, right? They have these blood pressure medications, can't get an erection, can't have sex with their wife. It's really bad for a relationship, right?
You're
So
right.
there's all these downstream effects that are not just physical, but they're emotional, they're mental, it's all these things. So uh, nobody really fails. People that go through my program, like it's impossible to fail. I start them off on the 7X method. That's the book picture behind me. I traveled to Central America in 2020 during the pandemic, and I was introduced to this liaison for this quantic medicine program where they're healing people using food as medicine. And at that time, they've been around for 49 years. So that means they are 53 years old. And
Nice.
people go in there with cancers and stuff and leave, and I don't have the cancer protocols, but they gave me the basic time beating protocols where it teaches people there's no such thing as calories, no such thing as fat grams. Everything is based on quantic energy, like energy from the sun, circadian rhythm of our organs and systems, and then the energetic charge of food. So you have your main sleep wake cycle where you open up your eyes in the morning. That tells your pineal gland to stop pumping out melatonin, and then it tells your adrenal glands to get to work. 30 minutes later, you have your cortisol awakening response. That's your peak of cortisol. It should be like 10 to 20 times higher than it is when you go to bed. Uh, and then all your organs and systems follow suit. So they take turns resting and peaking in activity. So I started just writing this out for my coaching clients, and then they're like, I lost a pant size in a week. Or they're like, my carpal tunnel is going away. My psoriasis is going away. Like all these little things. I was like, wow, this is something like, and then so I started writing like recipes and meal plans. And then so it just turned into a book. And yeah, it's really cool. I researched as much as I could to see if we had research in the Western world of PubMed and Google Scholar. And
Right.
we do have, since we're just getting to it in our world. The 2017 Nobel Prize for Medicine and Physiology was awarded to 3 scientists who discovered, they call it a clock gene in all of our cells. So all of our cells are bound by circadian rhythms. And it makes sense, right? Your organs and systems take turn resting and peaking in activity. You couldn't have
Hmm.
everything like, blasting at full blast at the same time, or you'd feel like, right? Everything has its rhythm. And every organ and system, when it finishes its work shift, so to speak, it wants a certain type of food, and that food is defined by its energetic charge. And the energetic charge, most of the time, can be categorized by color. So if you look at the sun, we see white light, but when you see a rainbow, it's divided into 7 different wavelengths. Well, so there's 7 different food groups, and our organs and systems are divided into 7 different groups too. I feel like it comes from God. Like, I don't know, no human could plan this, but anybody who goes on that for a week, they cannot believe how better their digestion is better, their sleep is better, they don't need digestive enzymes, their heartburn is gone, a lot of their food sensitivities go away. So it's really incredible. It's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. It's in paperback, it's in Kindle, it's in Nook, it's in Audible. However you
Nice.
consume content. I myself got really sick from an antibiotic, as I mentioned earlier, and I had developed really bad food allergies. I had to do FMLA. I thought I had Crohn's disease. I was really, really sick from big pharma. So
Wow.
that started my journey back in 2002.
Hmm.
That's kind of how I got here. But I had taken, I needed like digestive enzymes with every meal. My stomach was just trashed. And like if the bottle said to take two, I took four. Like that was my life for 20 years. And after being on that diet for 2 weeks, I've never taken another digestive enzyme.
Wow.
Yeah, so I don't know how we would test it, but like, my hypothesis is that your body makes digestive enzymes for certain types of food at certain times of day based on the energetic charge that's needed by that organ or system. Like once you start eating like this, your energy levels are through the roof. It's just changing the time of day that you eat certain foods. You eat, I mean, you can't obviously eat processed food. That's not really food anyways.
Right.
It's like
Right.
space food, like
So what
Doritos.
about things like I work 10-hour shifts. I get up at 4:50 because I get up with an alarm and I like to have some me time in the morning.
Yeah.
And that's so like that's definitely probably not like a natural circadian rhythm. Like if I lived in a tent and I only woke when the sun rose and the sun went down and
Yeah.
but is that something that's completely doable even though when I'm at work I'm inside. Like that is not a choice I have. I can't.
Yeah.
So it's something that is still doable, even with a like that kind of life, because not it's not going to be just me who's listening to this. It's going to be everybody who has a quote unquote normal life where they go to
Mhm.
work and they have their responsibilities. Is this something we can do easily with that? And how long is the program?
Um, no, I just eat like that for life.
Okay, so it doesn't, so it's not
Yeah.
like because you're saying time of day. Well, and I moved right now. I'm in Virginia Beach, and I have been, and I hardly ever go outside, which is freaking terrible. Not hardly ever. I go outside. I still run. I've been swimming, but I swim inside. Um, and is there like I know you said something about being outside. As soon as you said it, I was in Hawaii for 6 months. I went outside all the time, pretty much every day. I lived close
Yeah.
to the water. I don't live close to the water now. So like I can make a million excuses why I don't go outside, but it's been
Well, 10
hot.
hour shifts are hard. I have a teacher, one of my clients in there that was, one of my patient zero. She's a middle school teacher and she's
No.
able to follow it. So that's why there's different there's a food plan that has like a whole bunch of different foods. The idea is that you just look at what time of day you're eating and you try to get the majority of your energy from that group. So if you're eating at like 1 p.m., that's on the border, the green group and the red group. So you can have some salad and have some red meat. Or for you, that's when you can have like your fermented things, whatever you eat that has protein in it.
Mhm.
That's when your body needs the heaviest amount of protein. Steak is not good to eat for dinner. They say steak causes colon cancer. It's the time of day that you eat it. Your body's not prepared to digest it at 8 or 9 p.m. It wants it when the sun is at the highest point. So the most difficult to digest foods that like salads, cucumbers, raw green stuff, and red meat, those should be eaten when the sun is at the highest point in the day. It has to do with energy.
Well, that's interesting. About 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I started packing lunches. Well, I always pack my lunch, but I started making salads for lunch because and that's what I have for lunch every day at work is a big salad.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, you're in
so,
tune.
yeah, I didn't even by accident.
Yeah, it's
I
your
love that.
intuition. It'll confirm your intuition for sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting. I can't wait to try it. I love trying new things, especially with my diet. I mean, obviously I've been vegan for a long time, but I've tried and not necessarily all the trends, but I like a good cleanse and a good fast and things like that. Not too long or I go overboard or
Yeah.
I'll fast for like 4 days and well
Wow.
and then I'll eat the whole. I usually only do three now because I just don't when I come out of a fast, I like to be healthy when I come out of the fast. And if I do too much, then I'm not healthy when I come out. I'm like, I just see food and I'm like, I'll eat whatever.
Hurricane,
Yeah, I don't
yeah.
want to do
Um,
that.
yeah, no, it's meant to be eaten that way your whole life. And I have it where you can do mostly juices too. It was like when I was in the hospital, like I couldn't really eat either. And I just did like protein shake, juices, maybe I threw in some beef jerky, and then I would have my main meal when I got home at like 5 o'clock.
And so you felt so I do that. I would love to do that. So you exercise, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm so tired. I cannot, like, I have tried different things like that, but I'm so tired when I get home. I will definitely not work out when I get off if I don't eat something during the day. And I don't know if that's a mental block? Because it very well could be.
Probably your brain, because your brain uses a lot of energy. So you probably,
Mm,
hospitals work you to the bone,
they
man. I
do.
mean,
They do.
most people I worked with in my department were like, we get home and it's like, can of tuna again. Like you're just beat up. The hospital will drain every last thing out of you because most people in the business are compassionate. And so when you see a patient that needs something, you just help them because it's the right thing to do. And
Right.
sacrifice. We all sacrifice ourselves. So people want to complain about doctors all they want, but they said they go through a lot just to get there, and they work themselves to the bone, and they sacrifice their needs and the needs of their family for their patients. That's
Oh,
100%.
they definitely do, and I know I go to different hospitals and work, and I definitely see a trend in where the doctors want to stay and work forever, and everybody thinks it's for money, and a lot of times they don't get paid that much more. They just want to make sure their patients are taken care of, and it's super unfortunate the disconnect between nutrition, because I firmly believe the
Yeah.
doctors that I work with, most of them, I won't say all of them because that's like too specific, but 90% of them truly, truly feel like they're taking the best care of their patients. And they are most of the time treating a symptom. I do a lot of the electrical stuff with hearts. And
Mm-hmm.
they're just, and like if somebody has SVT or AFib, they just take care of the problem. They are like that problem. They don't go deep down and be like, okay, maybe you should lose weight because there's this big study about AFib with obesity and the more, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah,
whatever.
why don't you try not eating so much? Why don't you
Right.
get on the damn treadmill?
And they don't say that though. That's where I get that's one of the reasons we are meeting
It's the
because
elephant in the room.
it
Like,
is.
duh.
But there's a doctor I work with here and I asked him, I was like, so, and he's the one who told me about the study. He tells all of his patients you should lose weight.
Good.
He will turn them down if they're too obese and be like, here, this might make it better. Because there's also, people come back with AFib. You get fixed for AFib, you probably will come back. It's a higher rate of
Yeah.
return than anything. And that's unfortunate, but
Well, no, what I used to tell people, I said, when you keep eating, your body gets bigger, your organs don't. And so basically, your little kidneys are working for two people, not one, and they're going to wear out early. That's why you're going to have kidney failure. I was like, your heart's going to wear out early. You're going to have congestive heart failure. There's just no way around it. You can't make the heart do the work of two people and expect it not have no consequences.
right. Right. Well, and that, a lot of people are like, well, I'll deal with it when I get older. And I'm always like, well, I want to deal with it now and
It's
be
too late.
happy.
It's
I
that's
know.
the whole
It's
point of my program is like if your brain is laying down amyloid plaques when you start skipping periods, you got to make sure your hormones are right. Check them every year. And
yeah.
because that's when Alzheimer's, by the time you get a diagnosis, it's too late.
How much does getting your hormones tested cost? Because I know that's a thing for me because I had my regular blood work done with health insurance, and it was just like a CBC, very basic, like normal or
Depends
normal
on your
doctor, not a, and it cost me $1,000. Well, and that was a few years ago. Now I probably have better insurance, but I'm sure that insurance will not cover any of this, and that's unfortunate. But
Yeah, no, I went to my primary care and he ordered a bunch of thyroid stuff and Quest wanted to charge me 700 and I was able to get it for like 400 off the functional medicine test. So, um,
okay,
yeah, generally between like 4 and 500 bucks. The brain chemistry test, the sex hormone test, the longevity test, the DNA test, like that's pretty much where they fall. But it
okay, so
was cheaper. Yeah, it was cheaper for me to do the functional medicine testing at home than it was for me to go through my doctor and use LabCorp and have my insurance have to appeal them and like
yeah, because
it's
4 or 500 bucks, that's for all of it once a year. Well, for
no,
most of it.
that's for per test. It cost me
Mm.
about 1,200 bucks to order all
Okay,
these panels.
once a year. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but well, it depends. If you have a thyroid, when people come to me, they're a mess. And so they're gonna feel a lot better if we just attack the thyroid, attack the hormones, attack the adrenal glands and the brain chemistry at the same time. I'm making remarkable turnarounds with people because by the time people get to me and they spend money on a program, they're sick and tired of being sick and tired. They're
Right.
like, I don't care, I'll pay anything to have my freedom back. I mean, that's generally what I do. And if you, I mean, your clients, they can listen, or your followers, listeners, they can find me on Instagram. It's seven, just like my book, 7X method, the number seven, the letter X, METHOD, 7X method. And you can see, I'm always there. I talk about all kinds of stuff and I post what the tests look like. You can DM me there. I have a website. It's drsarahdoyle.com. It's DRSARAHDOYLE, drsarahdoyle.com. And you can see, what I have there. You can book a 30-minute Zoom. I do 30-minute, I call it discovery call, but I like to do
Okay.
a Zoom so I can see people's faces. You can tell if they're lying. Uh,
Yeah, that's a good. That's
yeah,
good.
yeah. I mean, I have to see their faces and, um, we'll go deep dive for 30 minutes and I'll say, listen, I don't know if my program's right for you. Like if I feel like somebody's not going to be compliant, I'm not going to sign them up because I don't want it's a competitive world out there. I don't want somebody to say my program didn't work because they didn't, I need somebody who's going to be able to commit to stuff. I have to see people who are already have habits where they're taking supplements, but they don't know what to take. They're still having these symptoms. Like, the people I work with are ones who are already trying to exercise. They're already trying to eat right. They can't figure out what's going on. They've done their best. They've been all over TikTok, looking at influencers, trying to piece things together. They've gone down the WebMD rabbit hole and they're totally misled. Those are the people I want to work with, the ones who've already tried and failed.
Yeah.
Um, so that's an
So,
option.
so what? So the biohacking thing, is that something you start in January?
No, it's a rolling start.
It is a rolling
I
start.
do it every week. Every Tuesday, I have a mastermind and people can join whenever. There's 2 classes on nutrition, 4 classes on hormones, 1 class on thyroid, 1 class on cortisol, stress, and sleep, 2 classes on brain chemistry. And I teach you what diseases, like what symptoms are, what your lab work looks like, and all those courses are embedded in an app, so they have lifetime access to that too.
Nice.
I have it listed on my website for 5 grand, but I'll give a $2,000 discount to your clients. I was
You
looking.
gave me a code. The coupon code is Open Heart 2000.
There we go. Yeah, I was just gonna look it up, double check. Yep,
Yeah.
Open Heart 2000.
And that's
So,
called Biohacking Boot Camp.
yep, it's on my website. It's 7X Method Biohacking Bootcamp. And if you're not sure if that's what you need, you can book a discovery call. It's $100 for 30 minutes. That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, that's a great deal. I think I love so I would say 15 years ago, I was like my kid and I would go for date night, and a lot of times it would be McDonald's. And slowly, I smoked cigarettes. I like, and I'm not even like talking shit about anybody who does any of this stuff. It's fine. But when I started to discover well, there's so much stuff that once you start to learn that you can fix yourself and you can make yourself feel better, and it's really up to you 100%. I mean, as far as it goes, like I would rather spend money doing something like this than spend money on cancer treatments or
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like, there's so much stuff. And I know sleep is super important. I sleep really well, but my nighttime routine has been getting worse and worse and worse. I still sleep really well, but I stay on my phone for stupid hours, like not hours, but way too long anyway. But I feel
Nobody's
like
perfect. Don't
oh
beat
my
yourself
God.
up. Well, I
I
mean, we're Generation X. I mean, my mom smoked in front of me. They just invented seatbelts. They didn't even
yeah.
have bicycle helmets or internet when I was in college.
I remember being a little kid and we would take my cousins who are much younger than us places, and they weren't in car seats or nothing. Like we didn't do any of that. And I'm not beating myself up. I do think my kid he'll be 21 next week actually. And
Oh,
he's
great.
right. And he's not 100% healthy all the time, whatever, but he's very aware because of watching me learn all the things that I was learning. So I think this is the perfect
Good.
example of the way you can take your health into your own hands is by
Well, you
doing
have
this.
to. You have to because people
Absolutely.
don't really. I had a friend that had breast cancer when she was 20. No, not breast cancer. She had Hodgkin's lymphoma,
Mm.
and her cancer bills were like $200,000 with insurance. She said, I was just working enough to get my next chemo treatment. She's like, my credit, like, and she ended up working and paying it all off. You think insurance is going to pay for cancer? Not at all. You're
Right.
screwed. Cancer bankrupts millionaires. I watch people go to MD Anderson with stage 4 liver cancer. They come out alive and broke. Like,
Yeah, that's crazy.
yeah, what if you don't have $1 million? Then you're stuck doing the Medicaid route. You're getting sham care. It's not,
Right.
I hate to say
Right.
it, but people with private insurance and people with public insurance get different options.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
It's like saying everybody can go to the emergency room. They're going to take care of you, but they're not going to give you well, as far as like hospital staff, they're going to treat you well and kind, but they won't do as much as easily or whatever, however you
well,
want to say that.
it's a business. They can't do
It
it for
is a
free.
business.
And
Right.
public insurance and Medicaid doesn't pay for things that private insurance will or cash. So, you bring up a really good point. Yeah. 3,000, like every time I go to Whole Foods, people are like, oh, a whole paycheck. And I was like, oh, you ever work in a chemo floor? It's $30,000 a
Right.
treatment. Like,
Right.
I'll take my vegetables, bro.
Yeah, every time, every time. And that's yeah, because and I now or eat organic, but that was also a process. And I think as
Sure.
long as everyone understands that this isn't, I feel like nothing changes overnight, but except for your mindset. You can change
Sure.
that in a minute.
Hmm.
So, okay, perfect. Thank you so much for being on here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. I hope that we can help just even one person. It'll be a success.
Even if it's me.
Amen, girlfriend.
Yeah, so I'm gonna look you up right now and see what I can find. I'm not even kidding. I definitely have some things in my own mind that I might need.
Yeah, I'm happy to help. Yeah,
Yeah,
guys, definitely take advantage. You need a specialist because your doctor can't help you.
right. Perfect. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.